This video contains various flashing and glitchy effects, so a photo sensitivity warning for anyone it pertains to. Also, like always, there will be a pinned comment below containing all the songs I use in this video, as well as in the description. Thank you and enjoy the video. Alrighty, let's talk about MOUTHOLE. MOUTHOLE is one of the weirdest games I've ever played. I mean, the closest thing I could think to it off the top of my head is LSD Dream Emulator. Inside LSD Dream Emulator, you kind of just walk around and touch things and just like exist in a space, but I wouldn't even call it a walking simulator because the point really isn't to walk or to really do anything. It's just to be, and finding new things is just kind of like, you know, the joy of the game, which is exactly how I feel about MOUTHOLE. It's just this strange little adventure that I get to run around and just discover secrets underneath secrets underneath secrets. You know, it's wild, honestly. The beginning of the game has a dentist rummaging around your mouth, just kind of lambasting you for the poor health of it. He asks you a few questions like what your name is, your favorite color, and your favorite TV show, which is just thrown into 4 different options of like drama, sports, reality and stuff like that. It's nothing specific. Then he tells you you have 5 more days before, the complete collapse of your mouth happens, and then just sends you on your merry way as if I'm supposed to be okay or happy about that. He does imply you can take care of your mouth and maybe fix some of these things, but it's not really how the game goes. Although it's kind of hard for me to describe to you how the game actually goes, because it is just a lot of nonsense, at least how it feels at first. It's just so much smacking into your face. After cleaning the mirror, you have an option to walk into your mouth or climb into your mouth. Like, what? But then imagine being able to tickle your own uvula until you fall down out your ass to land on the ground to crawl into a mirror world of the world that you already exist in. I don't understand what's going on here. The closest thing to a narrative going on in this game is just the appointment your doctor set 5 days from now. Otherwise, it's just kind of all up in the wind, all up in the air. It doesn't matter. Nothing is a passing of one thing to the next. It's just kind of random things. Very much like in a real life dream. For me, dreams are almost completely and entirely random. There are bits and pieces of it that are obviously inspired from my life and incorporated in, and there's like a slight narrative going on, maybe, but I'll be in high school again, and my teacher will just be spewing the most complete and absolute nonsense, quoting like a time cube.
Bottom, front and back and 2 sides. Earth has a top and bottom, front and back and 2 sides. The human has a top and bottom, front and back and 2 sides. Now the human head has 4 corners, nose, 2 ears, and a back corner, but they don't have the 1 corner face.
Who you talking to?
And so MOUTHOLE does a better job than most things I've played or watched at dreams. You walk up to a pig at one point and he's like, hey, don't go alone, take this, and he gives you a watering can, which allows you to water the plants, which affects the inside of your brain at one point, creating a giant coconut tree. I think that's what it is. I'm not a biologist or herbologist. I'm not a ballist. I don't know plant. Or even the TV channels that you can turn on. Like, there are bits and pieces that are missing, so it just leaves enough context for you to know, like, oh, on the sports channel, sports are happening. There's sports on the reality channel. There's something real going on, that's for sure. Drama, obviously, there's like, oh no, and the soap opera, kind of same thing. I don't know. That's how watching a TV show in my dreams feels. It's enough information for my brain at the time to be like, this makes sense. And then when I wake up to be like, wait a second. So if the game has caught your eye by now, now may be the time to leave, just because I will be jumping into, more major spoilers and revealing a bunch of the secrets and endings. And that's literally the whole game, is just finding things and discovering secrets and in this like crazy dreamscape, dementia, simulator. I don't know what it is, but if it's caught your eye by now, if you seem interested, or if it seems like your thing, go ahead and come back later, hopefully. And if you enjoyed the game from here, let me know, and let me know how you experience. Maybe comment and tell me your experience with the game, and then do an edit portion where you tell me like, hey, this is how I felt about the game. I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to see how different people developed their opinions and how their opinion may have changed from different stuff I'm going to talk about here soon. I have shown, one or two secrets, like going into your own mouth and tickling your uvula and falling out your ass, all that shit.
Stinky.
But there are plenty of things to still find, so you know what? I hope you guys come back with some interesting info, any of you those leaving, and who will come back. Anyways, moving on.
Now, let me get something clear. I don't know if this game is meant to be a dream sequence, a look into the deteriorating effects of dementia on the mind, or simply just an absurdist piece of art that isn't trying to mean anything.
So, after the intro with the dentist, you're kind of just thrown into everything without any direction, aside from if you try to sleep all 5 days away immediately. The dentist will tell you at first, he's like, yo, hey, you probably shouldn't do this. There's nothing to gain out of doing this, and you will not like it by the end of it. And if you make it to the end of the 5 days with just sleeping, not trying to explore, do anything else in the house, he'll come back to tell you, like, yeah, what did you expect? I told you I wasn't going to give you a reward for not playing the game. Fair enough. I just didn't know you would try to trap me in a limbo of my own home, which, it's what I did to myself. Although you can still kill yourself if you have time left, or if you're able to crawl into your own mouth. You are able to activate other death scenes, aside from falling off of the stairs, which is one of the endings. It's the first thing that happened to me. Like, I'm all about like saving time and all that stuff, and seeing no railing on the stairs right at the top, I was like, oh, I can just jump down. I laughed my ass off the first time this happened. This was so funny to me. So, like, what else are you supposed to do? I guess you would assume, like, you go brush your teeth, right? Because the first thing you interacted with in this game was a dentist looking through your teeth. And when we're looking through your eyes, you could see the inside of your teeth. You would assume the first thing you do, since he said your teeth were just horrible, is go brush your teeth. So that's what I did. Even if you brush them for 5 days straight, it changes nothing except for the color of your teeth for a particular ending. That ending is the collapse, and I think the collapse just stands for exactly what happens. You walk down a long pathway of your teeth just exploding into bloody chunks, regardless if they're pearly whites or you smoked every single day of every single moment to make your teeth as black as possible. It doesn't matter. This ending will happen, and he says the same thing no matter what. And there's also this like weird glitch happening inside the game where like it seems like every other time I do this ending, the teeth are just invisible. Now, I could be wrong. This might be intentional. It's kind of hard to know if you can tell by the content of the game so far, but I assume it's a glitch, and if you're watching it by now, I will try to report it as a bug, but just like weird. And after doing all the endings, you find out that, teeth don't really have a whole lot to do with most of them, at least as far as I can tell, except for the fact that most of them require the use of crawling into your own mouth and using these teeth portals, or the holes that are underneath your teeth and your gums there. So you're walking through your own dental disease into other universes. If it's a dream, then that's just how it is. The first door you walk through leads you into just this big, vast desert, and the more you walk inside of it there, you quickly notice that there's just like this like worm guy. He's just like hanging out there. He's I don't know, I guess there's like a weird Dune reference I could probably make. Like, is this the god emperor of mankind, worm man, Lisan al-Gaib?
Listen, Al-Gaib!
I think he's just called Worm, and he asks you to find him a glove, even though he doesn't have arms or hands, which isn't even something I'm pointing out. It's something he specifically points out to us, that he doesn't have arms or hands, but that he wants a glove to fulfill his dreams. At some point, I looked up toothworm because I was like, it's a worm in a toothworm. And I came across this cool Wikipedia page that kind of just went into the different mythology and history kind of connected to these myths that worms used to like cause decay in our mouth, or was one of the theories over time about how we got things like cavities and gum disease and all that stuff before we had a full understanding of dentistry.
And, I mean, it makes sense. We've always had teeth, so of course every culture has ancient myths around them. The Babylonians or Assyrians have a creation story of a toothworm being spawned from the marshes. The worm desired not only something to eat, but something to destroy, and refused the gift of dried figs and apricots, demanding to be amid the teeth and live within the gums, and shunned by the gods themselves. Apollonia is the patron saint of dentistry, who was tortured in the 2nd century by way of smashing her teeth.
Yeah. Well, check this out. You're all out of time, bitch!
She is prayed to for relief of toothaches and dental disease. Wiki also has this old, strange photo from an 18th century book of dentistry originating from the Ottoman Empire, depicting some sort of crazy demon party going on inside the teeth. I cannot confirm its origin, as the source on Wiki leads nowhere, but the photo really does invoke the imagery of worlds housed within teeth.
So, I don't actually think that these, like, stories or mythology really inspired much of the game, or if it did, it only inspired, like, a tiny little portion of it, because so many of the other endings don't actually include the use of your teeth, or your teeth at all. The car ending has almost nothing to do with your teeth at all. I mean, you do need to use your mouth to actually get the ending, but the nonsense of it all really has no connection to dentistry or dentistry mythology. You walk up to a mechanic in this like amorphic town floating on pillars inside a weird land, like mindscape, I don't know, shadowscape, and the mechanic in the middle, he'll like change your oil, which I didn't know we had oil to change, that transforms you into a car, where I then do like some crazy sick jumps to go gain a letter opener, get back into our own house, I think still as a car, and open up a letter on our table that tells us, hey, the government's just gonna build a highway over your house. And then it happens, and you get run over and die. And not all the portals are in the character's mouth. One of the portals, as I mentioned earlier, when you tickle your uvula and, shit yourself out, sure is through your mouth, but the actual mirror portal to the mirror world is just in your world. You can actually see it beside the toilet when you're full-sized if you really want to. And, I know I mentioned this little secret earlier, but there is an ending directly connected to it. If you fall off the house or just off the area in general through one of the glitched out windows, doors, etc., you'll just go straight down into this weird, I don't know, I guess I'll describe it as a liminal space, a museum of the game's assets that are just interestingly represented as on a museum and shown around. It's really cool, actually. I'm not able to glean anything about the game from most of these assets, as far as I know. Maybe I'm just not smart enough or high enough. I have no idea. But it's a really cool area that I genuinely enjoy sitting around. It gives you, especially if you use the cheat code, and the cheat code is just typing, by the way, it's just 21st century, it'll change the graphics into out of low fidelity, and everything looks perfectly pixelated in a way that you can, see how they built every like before you do that, it's very muffled and like there's layers of I don't know what you call the effect layers or anything. I just know it's cool and interesting, but when you remove them, seeing more of the detail of the world doesn't explain anything more about it, which is just something I love about. There's just more questions to be had, like real life, you know. The more you zoom in on things, the more you're just like, wait, there's just more to ask. There are two endings that are just completely out there. One's called Floating Point, and Floating Point is achieved by doing a few things around the house to open up a particular door to enter this, like, you know, weird inner eye mindscape, where there's one big eye, there's two big eyes, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then there's a bunch of smaller eyes you can drag up or summon up, come up through the ground there, and they activate like a frequency or a sound effect with a color above them. And the ones you want to activate are the green ones, and there's 3 to activate. All the other ones you don't want to activate. And once you activate 3, you're told that there's like harmony or something coming or converging together. I don't know, I'll put it like right here for a second, or all over me, or on my face, or I don't know, somewhere. But then you go back into the actual world and listen to the radio, because over the radio is playing that transmission. And once you listen to it, you enter in just this like chaotic map of digital destruction that all is circulating around the radio that you were trying to. And I guess it's implied that you're trying to get closer and closer and closer to the radio until you just die and cease to exist. Like, I guess it implies at some level with the end screen that it's like, oh, you almost glimpsed the secrets of the universe. And it's like, almost? What do you mean? The static ending is also just like kind of just out there. It's very like kind of scary at a level, and I do think it makes more sense than the Floating Point. But what you end up doing is get your TV working, go back to the sundial room, because of course, you know, the sundial room in everyone's home that exists. Go to the sundial room and it'll give you a time, and if you go watch the TV at this time, you will be watching the news, and eventually it ranks your anxiety so high because you're just listening to violent meanderings of the infinite horrible things happening in the world, to where the static of the voices turn into just the static of your universe until everything is just static. It really feels like it's driving in on that anxiety of like, if the only thing you do is participate in things that drive your anxiety up, the entire world becomes anxiety. The entire world becomes vibrating nonsense until you just disappear. And that's terrifying and very psychedelic. There are a few endings I'm not mentioning, and they are just kind of crazy and out there as well, and they are, I would say, a bit more interesting. So again, if you're interested in the game, I'm still leaving a few of the endings for you to discover and figure out by yourself. But in this next little area, I will be talking a bit about the other secrets that you can find and unlock that are kind of like post-endgame content, I'd say, because I'd say after you unlock all the endings, you have like, that to me is achieving the end of the game. I don't actually have all the secrets unlocked. I know this for a fact because I still have a bunch of achievements to unlock. Maybe not a bunch, like 9 or something like that. And they're not secret achievements. They have like words on them that describe things, but I don't know what it's trying to be or describe, you know? It's just like, what's going on here? A lot of the post-game content revolves around the fact that the dentist, I think, gives you a golden toilet, and this golden toilet is the way you can unlock a bunch of the cheats in the game. The cheats include things like no-clip or, you know, teleporting to the different maps and such. It's kind of weird because I wouldn't exactly say that they're cheats, because they are just giving you the tools to start discovering more of the game at this point. But I think they're described as cheats in the game, so I guess they are. And it's kind of weird because the dentist gave you this like golden toilet that allows us like to be gods in the game, and to like deconstruct reality itself. I had no idea dentistry taught you this. Dentist also saves us from like, if you were to fall off a map and just turn off no clip, you would just continuously fall and fall and fall. But the game keeps giving you prompts to be like, hey, are you stuck? Hey, are you stuck? Hey, are you stuck? because the developer also knew they, he, she, whatever, they knew that we were going to eventually end up in this position. And so the dentist, like the omniscient god he is like, hey, are you stuck? And then he just like unstucks you. And he's also at the end of the collapse ending, but he can't do anything about your teeth collapsing, as you guys saw earlier. It's really like annoying and dumb. Like, come on, dude. What? You're a dentist. Isn't the whole point of your existence to stop that? And also, as I said earlier, if you sleep for 5 days straight, your character will just wake up to the dentist being like, I've trapped you in limbo. You're stuck here forever. I really, really like these fucking weird games, you know? And there's something about the game that feels really inspired by David Lynch's works. Very specifically, Rabbids.
Rabbids is a strange little film series for sure. A rabbit family of 3 sits around doing random things and having nonsensical conversations for about 40 minutes or so of about 8 episodes.
Are you going to tell? I was wondering when Susie was going to do that. It is 11:15 p.m. It is dark outside.
There's an audience watching the rabbits as cheering and laughing are placed in particular intervals, such as when a family member re-enters the scene. Sometimes they're reciting nonsense poetry.
Distant, siren, an old, warm rock.
Other times it seems like they're worshipping Satan? Something feels off and aloof about the whole atmosphere.
Now, there's a lot of people who have tried to explain what Rabbids is, and I do think a lot of them are interesting, whereas people tried to reorganize the words to make some sort of coherent sense. Very interesting, and I do find it like fascinating that people are this involved with David Lynch's works. And I'm not really saying it's not an interesting way of going about trying to understand it, but it does feel a little like, you know how people try to like find secret messages in the Bible by like using math and stuff like that and blah blah blah, trying to figure out the end of the world? That's kind of how this line of thinking works. It's like, we're going to rearrange the wording order of everything everyone said to try and make a cohesive story that's happening from point A to B. Or it also feels like people saying like, oh, yo, Dark Side of the Moon played over top of The Wizard of Oz. Definitely intentional. Like, it's interesting that certain things line up if you do things right, but aside from like an interesting intellectual game to do, I guess, it's just nonsense. I don't know. Creativity doesn't really work like that. David Lynch is often talking about just fishing ideas out of the vast sea of his mind through meditation, that he's a fisherman who catches them on the end of a hook and, you know, reels them up and just follows these little strange ideas. I don't want to take anything away from anyone who has done this stuff or finds it fascinating. I just don't find it a convincing way to evaluate movies, games, or anything. And not that it can't be intentional. There are times that this sort of stuff has been, but I just don't get that feeling from Rabbids. Trying to understand art in this way feels like it's saying allegory and mythology aren't enough of a vehicle to already deliver these messages. And I guess it's kind of similar to me trying to piece together what MOUTHOLE is. You know, and that's probably part of the problem here, is trying to understand MOUTHOLE as a cohesive narrative put together to explicitly say something to me, like most stories do. When, in fact, I feel like this is more like a interactive art piece that is trying to invoke emotions and feelings and try to get me to connect with what it is. Because ultimately, the thing I connected with most is it really feels like a simulation for poorly taking care of your mental health in a lot of ways. Shirking off all these responsibilities you have because it takes so much time, you know, cleaning the house, brushing your teeth even, pushing all this until it falls down on you like an avalanche of responsibility. That's what this game does at some level, is it just really puts a spotlight on things in my life where I'm like, oh wow, I look like the weird Scream character from that painting. Huh? Riddled with anxiety about all the things I have to do because I leave all of them to the very last moment, which pushes back all the stuff I have to take care of myself. I don't leave the house much like the character in game, allowing the screaming voices of the TV to drown me out into a world of anxiety, consuming my entire world in a static of fear. Sometimes I'm staring at my reflection in the mirror, unable to recognize who that is. It very much felt encapsulated with the characters looking at themselves in the mirror. There's no quality that they can attach to say that this is a person. This is just an amalgamation in the face of literal anxiety. Again, the scream. Alright, well, welcome to the end of the video. I have a Patreon if you would like to support my channel or, me. There's only one tier. It's just $1, and again, it's just to support me. I'm not going to make any promises just right yet that I'm going to put extra content on there, because I can't put content normally on my own channel, let alone promising people to put stuff on Patreon. So for now, the $1 tier is just to give me support if you want to. But all the other ways you can give me support, like subscribing, liking, or commenting, are all just as important and just as helpful. So if you can do any of those as well, I would very much appreciate it. But otherwise, I'm working on doing better, and I am doing better. And I also hope you fine people are also doing well. Whoever comes by this, whoever's watched it this long, you really make me feel good. Thank you. So have a good one. So yeah, that's the end of the video. And until next time, have a good one, you fungoids.